Newlands, and welcome to another episode of the How to CEO Show. I'm your host, Murray Newlands. So, when you decided to become a CEO, the world changed. You can either build $1 billion company or you can crash and burn. When you decided to do this, you decided to take on the challenges of building this amazing company. We're here to give you the knowledge, advice, skills, and expertise to build an amazing company. In this show, we're looking at how do CEOs get paid and how much do they get paid? Well, there's lots of different answers to this question. And really it comes down to what stage the company is at, where the company is going, as well as the resources of the CEO. So there are many different parts to this. I'm going to try and answer some of these questions. In a startup or small business, often the CEO gets paid what the company can afford it to pay their CEO. What does that mean? Well, I started a small business myself 20 odd years ago, and basically myself and my business partner, we were the only employees. When we started, we were the ones working on it, and whatever the profits of the company were that year, that was money that we could take out in salary. We obviously had to account for all of our expenses first. We also had to be mindful of what the cash requirements of the company are. What does that mean? Well, as the company grew, we had to buy more and more supplies. And sometimes companies that we were working for would take us, we would have to buy those supplies in order to sell those things to the customers. Sometimes some of those customers would take a long time to pay, up to 180 days for one of our bigger customers. So being mindful of that, if we took all of the money out, we wouldn't have enough cash to buy and sell those goods because of the lag time there. And so we were only able to, we had to really think about keeping our salaries down, certainly for quite a long time, as the company was growing. And that's one thing to think about as the CEO of a small business. What are the ups and downs and cash flow requirements of the company? So that's with a small company. That's usually all of the profits are taken out by the CEO, by the founding team. Those are normally split according to different elements. One part might be salaries. So you might have one element if there's a team of people working on it, or even just two people working on the company together. You might say, okay, a salary, the market salary for this type of job is this type of compensation. Let's say you're both working at let's say one person is doing one type of skill. You might say, hey, that skill is worth this much, 100,000 a year, whereas the other person is doing a different skill, which is worth 200,000 a year. So you might split it that way. You might also have a different split for who owns what part of the company. So you could say, there are different ways of doing it. Say you could say, well, we'll just split the money equally. You could also say, hey, well, depending on who put what into the company, start with normally, you could say, hey, well, we'll take salaries according to market rate, and then we'll also have a split of the profit depending on who owns what part of the company. That's also common in small businesses when you have investors, equity investors who you might, for example, set up a business, you might not have all the money you need. Maybe it's not going to be a huge company and not going for massive growth, but let's say you want to set up and make it really simple. Let's say you want to set up a taxi company. You say, okay, I'm going to put in $5,000. Someone else says they're going to put in $15,000. You buy a car for $20,000. You say, okay, well, I'm going to take the salary of an average driver, but then we're going to split the profits according to, I take 25% because I put in 25% and you take 75% because you put in 75% above the value of average driver. So that's one way of looking at it. So there are different simple ways to look at how much a CEO is paid. In a startup, how much is a CEO paid? Well, often initially, that will depend on the CEO and what they need to get out of it. Ideally, the CEO will take as little money as possible and reinvest as much of it in the company as possible. Once the company starts to get funding, it may well be possible for the CEO to get a salary as they go up. But normally that's relatively limited, certainly in the first few rounds of funding, because everyone's trying to keep the costs down and grow the company as fast as possible. Once a company has raised more significant rounds of money, there are companies, there are agencies, there are charts, and there are kind of industry norms for how much CEOs will get paid according to different stages of the company. So it's relatively easy to track. Also, something that's often negotiated with investors. The board will decide, hey, the startup can afford to pay the CEO this much. This is a fair salary compensation. And then that will be issued to the CEO as their salary compensation. Often that will be a basic plus potentially milestone achievement goals. They might get bonuses on the success of the company. In larger corporate companies, there will be potentially shareholder stakeholders. There will be a board, and that board, once again, will vote for what the salary of the CEO should be. That will depend on a lot of things. Now, a lot of the time, a very large percentage of this is down to performance bonuses. And what might those performance criteria be? Well, it could be profitability. It could be growth. It could be the value of the shares. It could be, hey, if you grow the shareholder value, the board holders, the stakeholders are those people usually who have the largest amount of shares in the company. If they want to see their money grow, and if the value of the company, if the value of those shares goes up, then hey, that's what they're paying the CEO to do after all, to grow the shareholder value. Now, that might not necessarily equate to more revenue in the company. It is about if the compensation is in that method, it's about the shareholder value rather than revenue. The two are often connected, and should be connected in most circumstances. But actually, shareholder value is what they're after. They're looking for a return on their capital investment. I hope that's answered some of your questions on what are CEOs paid. I'm Murray Newland. Thank you for subscribing to the How to CEO podcast. If you'd like to be on the show, we'd love to hear from you.